So welcome guys to this live stream. We've got a very special guest. Lots of you will know him. He's called Alex Watson. He's a bioenergetics teacher, a body-based therapist, and an all-round good guy, a good friend of mine. So what we're going to be talking about today is a topic it has some power in my heart, and I imagine it has some power in Alex's heart as well. In fact, I'm sure it does. And it's the topic of men's mental health. Now, this gets thrown around a lot. We hear a lot about it. Mental health awareness, men's mental health awareness. And we've been growing in mental health awareness around men for a few years, and that's great. It's really good that the awareness is growing. But men don't just need awareness. Men don't need people to just feel sorry for them. Men need stuff to do to overcome these mental health challenges. And if you're a woman watching this, we are addressing this towards men specifically. So there might be a certain energy of that in it, an energy of brotherhood or whatever you want to call it. But you will probably gain benefit from the tools that we're going to be talking about as well. So I decided I'm just going to hit record. So I decided to set up this live stream with Alex after my brother's girlfriend came over one night, and she said that this friend of hers who she'd known for years, who was the life and soul of the party, always happy, always smiling. She never would have expected this to happen. He killed himself. And it just lit something up inside my heart, a kind of anger, obviously not at him, but a kind of anger at the fact that men are not given anywhere to go in order to find help. Not really. So many men are on their own. So many men are feeling like they can't talk about what they're going through. And not only that, they don't feel that there's anything they can do to make the change. And so it's lit this thing up in my heart. And I think it's something to do with my purpose in a way, which is to help with this problem, to help with this issue of men being depressed to the point of suicide, men being anxious to the point of suicide, low self-esteem, not feeling like they have any worth in this world. And so I got in touch with Alex, and he was feeling the same sort of energy at a similar time. So we decided to do a live stream about it. And so we haven't planned what we're going to say or anything like that. We're just going to dive into this topic. And Alex is going to we're going to start with a practice, because men are funny in a way. We like to talk, we like to share, but we wish some men don't like to do that. But we also need something to do. If there's a problem, we want to fix it. And at a certain point on the path, at a certain level, we just need someone to tell us what to do to feel better, what to do to overcome the challenge that we're facing, the internal challenge that we're facing. Okay, man. So men's mental health. Maybe we can start by me asking you a question about it.
Sure.
So I think, first of all, would you like to give a brief background on your experience with mental health challenges?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, will you move on to talk about what you believe to be the number one thing, or the top two things, or top three things, but the number one thing that you think men need if they feel stuck in some sort of internal suffering, internal emotional, psychological challenge. So yeah, if you want to tell a bit about your story and then what can men do, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess with my story, it was mental health started when I was about 21, or when it came into my awareness, I was about 21, 22. And it started with a panic attack. I'd been out for a few drinks the night before, and I woke up the next morning and I was just so aware that my heart was beating. Like I'd never noticed my heart beat before. I'd just never even been aware of anything going on below my neck. But I was just like super aware that my heart was beating really strongly. And then I got out of bed and it just like took off. It just accelerated. I mean, this was a panic attack. But I just totally freaked. I was by myself. There was no one around. Yeah, I thought I was having a heart attack. Went to the doctors. They told me I had a panic attack. And then from that moment, it was just like, yeah, a couple of times a day, I was just having these panic attacks. And for a couple of years, it was just like pretty consistent. It never really subsided. My life was constantly based on not activating panic, not activating anxiety. I was trying to move my life or move through life in a way that wouldn't bring up these uncomfortable feelings. So, that being said, and there's a lot of other stuff that I could go into, but just to kind of keep it brief, that was like the starting point for me when I became aware of my mental health, or the state of my mind. So yeah, as I said, I was kind of building a life around not activating this charge, this emotional charge in my body. But over time, that become really draining. And I started to see that no matter how much I manipulated and controlled my environment, it was always going to come up. It was going to find a way to release. It was going to find a way to come up. So with this in mind, I had to start looking at alternative ways of dealing with this. I tried, pharmaceuticals and medication, or same thing, medication. And I'd done various mindfulness techniques, and I'd seen various therapists like CBT and things like that, but it just wasn't deep enough. It just couldn't get me into the root of what was going on. It couldn't take me deep into these areas that I was so afraid to go, but I knew intuitively that I needed to go into these areas in my body. I knew that I needed to feel what was going on. Even though I wasn't kind of clued up with things, I somehow sensed that I had to feel it. I had to feel and experience it in order to build up a tolerance, to get stronger. And so that's what brought me to the body. And I'd say, for pretty much everyone out there who's dealing with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, whatever it is, there's a whole lot of things out there that people experience, and so much of it is in the body. It's probably 98% of it is in the body. And like you said, Chris, what's in the body is just fueling what's up top. It's ammunition for what's going on in our psychology. Like self-limiting belief systems, intrusive thoughts. Ultimately, they're responding to what is going on or what is held in our body. So I'd say the number one thing for treating this stuff is to feel the body, is to know how to open the body and be courageous and curious and compassionate enough to feel into these parts of ourselves, explore these parts of ourselves. And it doesn't happen overnight. I think that's where I kind of went wrong. I just wanted to do one session and that was it. Bang, I'm done. I can get back to my old life. I can get back to who I was before all this and, being normal. But it's a journey. It's a journey. And this is why I really love bioenergetics, is because it is a training in exactly what I've just talked about. It brings up the feelings. It teaches us how to feel the body, which so many of us don't know how to do. We think we are feeling, which is quite common, in therapy. They say, I think I feel this. It's like, no, but what do you feel? very few, myself included, for a long time, couldn't actually identify what I was feeling. It was just like numbness. So bioenergetics really brings this stuff online, and it can be quite evocative. It can be quite challenging, but it's kind of the way through.
Yeah, beautiful, man. There's a few points that came to me there when you were talking that I wanted to kind of expand on. We've got so much we could go into, haven't we, to do it in a short live stream, because this has been our lives. Mine and Alex's lives for many years has been all about this. We're incredibly passionate about it. We've learned a lot about it. So we'll give you what we can in this live stream. But you said a few things interesting to me. One was the thoughts which you had when you were going through it, which was that you wanted to get back to your old life. Because what tends to happen, we're okay for a while in life. Maybe not great after childhood. Maybe things start getting a bit sticky in the teenage years, but we're coping. We're okay. We can cope with our addictions. We might drink, smoke weed, whatever we do to stay at a level of okay happiness. And then something happens and we start really suffering. It's like nothing works. And we just want to get back to the way we were. And I wanted that so much. If I could just get back to the way I was, say I started suffering when I was 18. If I could just get back to how I was when I was 16, I really started suffering when I was 21. And I thought, if I could just be how I was when I was 18, if I could just get back. But then at a certain point, you come to realize that this mental health challenge that you've got hasn't been given to you simply to hurt and annoy you. It's not, you haven't got it just, you're not a victim to it. You haven't got it it's not just here to hurt and annoy you. Actually, it's here to transform you into a different person. And we need to realize we're not going to get back to the one we were before. We're not going to be the person we were before. It's a process of transformation into a new way of being, into a different way of being, which is truly happy, That's my understanding. That's my orientation. And that's my experience as well. I didn't get back to who I was before, but now I'm a lot happier in a completely different place than I ever realized was possible before. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Alex?
Yeah, no, that's a good pickup. That's a really good pickup. And I think it's so common. I think everybody, men, women, but we'll use men as the example as we're discussing men's mental health. Yeah, men, we just want to get back to how things was, before I had these feelings, before I had these thoughts, before I became self-conscious. Like, let me just get back to that place. And a lot of this comes because we have an ego, or we have a thinking mind, a self-image, something that we aspire towards. And being a man in this world is like, it's hard because, ultimately men are based on what they do, who they are, like in terms of value, job, money, women, level of success. So like men are really heavily judged. So there's a lot going on up top for men. Like, men are typically known for being more heady than women, and women are known to be more feeling, the masculine and feminine, I guess. And having this ideal self, this self-image that I really want to be like, I really want to be this person that I see in my mind. When this gets sabotaged, when this is no longer possible because mental health starts coming online, well, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Where like, I just want to go back to dreaming I am this self, or dreaming that I can be like this, I can be this person. If I'm not telling myself I am this guy already, like living in fantasy almost. which is very common. You know, we kind of see ourselves before this stuff comes online. We kind of see ourselves in a positive, successful light, and then bang, mental health comes in, and then it's like, ah, shit, I'm not actually that guy. I'm not really like this. So there's like a yearning to get back to dreaming, to get back to disassociation, because, you know, this disassociated state is away from the body. It's away from feelings. Like, this stuff was there all along. All the shit was going on underneath the surface. But because so many of us, I know for me, definitely, I was just completely living in my mind, and, you know, probably out of my mind in some sort of abstract, spiritual, conceptual realm, and just completely absent from what was going on here. So, yeah. And guys, being in the culture that we are, you know, Western culture, whatever, our worth, our value is based on our level of sort of success and, you know, material things. And mental health takes no prisoners. So yeah, I don't know if I got a little bit sidetracked there. Like you said, there's so many different avenues you can go down with it, but yeah, the key point, I think, is men have a big ego. We have a huge ideal self that we aspire towards, and when the mental health comes in, we think, shit, that's no longer possible. I can't be this guy anymore, and I'm going to have to come down from up here into here. And that is fucking scary, because that potentially creates more risk, more problems. We see it as more suffering, which for most men, it's like, I can't cope with any more. It's like, I'm at the brink here. Just let me get back. And the second we can choose to come to the body rather than keep going up top to the mind, then things really start to shift. Things start to shift. And like you just said, Chris, now you're in a place which is much happier, much more content than you could ever have imagined. And you couldn't imagine it. You couldn't imagine it because it was beyond the mind. It's beyond the mind. And true fulfillment is really in the body. And men that are going through it to journey back away from this ideal self, which never really comes true, and journey into the heart, journey into the belly, learning how to express. They're being called to a higher path. I'll leave it there.
No, it's good, man. I knew that. I felt the energy of this call before we came on it. Like, I knew that there's a lot here to be spoken, and I could feel the energy in it in my body this morning. Like, I knew we were coming onto a call to speak about something important. But yeah, another, again, coming off a couple of the points you made. All these men who are suffering, sorry, I'm just gonna, yeah. All these men who are suffering, like we were, so in my head I was, so in my head. All men who are suffering for one reason. They're in their heads. Their thoughts are telling them things that aren't true, and they're believing those thoughts. They're believing thoughts in their head that think that they're not good enough, or something's going to go wrong in the future, or whatever those thoughts are. They're just believing the thoughts. They're in the head. That's all the issue is. Too much in the head. And also, I want to say, firstly, there's a way out of that. There's a way out of that. And what me and Alex both teach is ways out of that into your body and into a place within yourself, which is causelessly happy. When I first discovered this, it was a surprise. I've been doing meditation for a while. I'd been practicing this stuff for a while. And I was just on a bus in Japan, driving, and I'd been suffering for years, really. I was on a bus in Japan, looking out the window, driving along, and I started to feel this happiness inside for no reason at all. I didn't like Japan. It wasn't Japan. It was something coming online inside of me, a causeless happiness coming online inside of me. How I would describe it now is I was in touch with my being. I'd gotten in touch with my being. I'd come out of my mind into my body, and I was in touch with my being. When you're in touch with your being, that is the truest fulfillment. That is the only fulfillment you can really find. That is the only way you can really find true self-esteem. No matter, like you were saying, Alex, no matter, men, we want to create a self-image of ourselves. And I haven't been in that for years. So I'm looking back at, I have to look a few years back to see when I was trying to create a self-image, and the pain in that of wanting people to see me a certain way, not wanting to come across weird, wanting to, people to think that I was cool, or whatever words you want to use. It comes from being a teenager, doesn't it? And so we pretend we're not authentic. We pretend to be a certain way. We pretend to be different than how we are. And this journey back into the body and back into your being, this journey away from your mind, it puts you in touch with a felt sense of something inside your heart, which is good. And nobody can convince you that it isn't good. And nobody in the world could say anything to you that could possibly change this goodness inside. And you start to, I would say, identify, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. You start to know yourself as this goodness. And then when you really become established in that, you can truly be yourself, because you're not afraid of other people's opinions anymore. You're not afraid of being yourself anymore. And you're not wasting your precious life force energy on trying to be someone that you're not. Now, I'm not saying that but I still don't have these patterns coming up of being in a room and having thoughts of people judging me and that sort of stuff. It's still playing out. It hasn't fully healed from me, but it doesn't affect me in anywhere near the same way, because this is my resting place. My body is my resting place. And I know that those thoughts and feelings that might arise around unworthiness or whatever are just temporary movements arising within my consciousness. How could I be moved? How could that bother me that much? It's just a thought and a feeling. It's thoughts and feelings, and it's thoughts and feelings which are creating all of these mental health challenges. And if only men were taught this from a young age, or if only men who started suffering had access to these teachings that we found, because we were lucky, weren't we, Alex, in a way? We found amazing teachers, amazing teachings, and we had, for some reason, the intuition to go for that. And we knew we could get out of it. Something in us knew we could get out of it. That's what you need. The hope, you can get out of it. Direction, somebody to give you guidance. What can I do to get out of it? You come back into the body and you find a way to not believe the thoughts in your mind. It's very simple. Of course, there's loads of practices in order to bring about these shifts, loads, which we teach. But I'll leave it there. I'll let you jump in, Alex.
Yeah, man, that was beautiful. Nice sharing and addition. I love how we just kind of bounce off each other, you know, and never really have anything planned, and it just kind of seems to work. But one thing that came to mind, and it was, I can't remember what you'd said, but it made me think of male suicide. You know, like so many men, what is it, like the number one killer for men under 50 is suicide. And it kind of just supports what we're saying in terms of the male ego, or this self-image, this ideal version of themselves that men play over and over in their mind. And men would rather kill themselves. And it's, you know, it breaks my heart really to think of it. Because I've definitely been in that situation, but men would rather kill themselves than face the reality of the body. This is what we're seeing, in my opinion. Like, this is what we're seeing with so much male suicide. Like, things are coming up, and it's just like, even like talking about it isn't going to resolve it, because like talking about it for a guy is like kind of like one of the worst things. I'm, you know, not for every guy, but for a lot of men, talking about it, yeah, I am saying it makes them weaker, but it does leave them feeling a bit more vulnerable and exposed. And without the proper tools, knowing how to use that vulnerability and work with it, it's kind of just like, it's the tip of the iceberg, really. It's the tip of the iceberg. So I think, yeah, male suicide being massive, men rather killing themselves than facing this reality of what's going on in the mind. And not even the reality of what's going on in the mind, actually, the reality of what's going on in the body, these feelings which are coming up, because feelings is such a feminine thing, you know, like feelings are associated with being feminine, you know, control your emotions, be stoic, be, you know, whatever. And don't get me wrong, I feel like there's a time and a place for that. But feelings are actually super powerful, and they can be used for great things. And they're actually, your life or our life is not complete, and we are not functional as men until we integrate and include this level of feeling what is going on in our body. So yeah, you know, coming back to the practices, the bioenergetics, the type of work what we do, Chris, we work at a physiological and an emotional level. It's not so much talking. And you know, I often find with bioenergetics it attracts people that are kind of just suffering in silence type of people. Like, they don't like to talk, they don't like to, like, you know, nobody knows that they're going through it. But this is because with body-based therapy, bioenergetics, coming into the body, you can create a certain level of change, integrative, functional, healthy, holistic change without having to really even speak to anyone. That's the beautiful thing about body-based therapy. That's the great thing about bioenergetics, is that you can create so much change, and you don't have to go down the traditional route of, you know, talking therapy, pharmaceuticals and things like that. We can begin this journey of healing by doing certain practices like what we just did. You know, if you're a guy who's watching this now, that practice what we did at the beginning, the bone arch, for what was it, 9 minutes, a little bit of shaking, 12 minutes, just doing that on a daily basis, like that can bring up so much. And of course you can increase the time, you can increase the reps. Just doing them 2 postures, like that can create so much change. And you know, it's quite rapidly that we start to feel that change intuitively, and men are intuitive when they start to get in touch with their body. Of course women are as well. Well, we're all intuitive, but just cut off from it. But often I find with bioenergetics, you know, people sense like, oh wow, my body likes this, I like this, there's something here. So yeah, if you participated in this workout, or if you're watching it on the replay, yeah, go for it with the bone arch. It's a great set of postures.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have got a question for you. I just want to say something. Yeah, it's not an either or, body-based therapy or talking therapy. Talking, although it's difficult for some people don't want to do it. Some people, if you are attracted to expressing, it can be useful to share. Like, we do keep a lot of stuff in, men, and that is often held in the throat. If you haven't cried, if you haven't shared your experiences, if you haven't shared your traumas, then finding someone who you feel safe with to share with can be a very powerful thing to do. Combining it with stuff that you can do on your own is a good combination. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, of course, I can get into it a little bit with the bioenergetics and things like that. And yeah, I'd second that. I'd absolutely second that. Sharing is a great thing as long as it's with the right person. You know, I think that's important. Finding the right grounded, loving person, whether it be a friend, whether it be a talking therapist, and yeah, sharing can be really powerful if it's done in the right way, for sure.
Yeah, you want someone to listen. You don't necessarily want someone to give you advice all the time, even though that can be helpful if you're wanting that. But you want someone to listen, to hear you, and you don't want them really to be feeding into your story of being a victim. If there is a victim story going, you don't want them to encourage that. You want a space to express. Sharing circles can be great. And I know we've both done quite a bit of this, like in a circle, sharing with a group, you get 3 minutes or 4 minutes to express. That can be helpful. I just wanted to mention the sharing bit. But my question is, I really want to hone in, because this has been the main, I suppose, one of the main points of this call has been about coming back down into the body. And I'm wondering whether we can make it a little bit clearer for people what that actually means in terms of, like, mechanically or physically. What does it mean? What does it mean to come in the body? How do you do that? So yeah, I'll leave that as a question for you.
Just drop that in there. I mean, I think when it comes to the body, there's no like big bomb of wisdom to lay on somebody, like, you know, this is how you do it, and it's a step-by-step approach. It's like ultimately just feeling into the body is all that is needed. Like feeling into the emotions, feeling into the sensations, feeling into the sense of the body itself is enough to create a certain level of embodiment. So I think that's like simply how you do it. You know, as I said, with bioenergetics, it's great because it really emphasizes that feeling element. And when it comes to embodiment, that's what it is. Ultimately, that's what it is, really feeling the body, or being aware of the sense of the body, or the beingness, or, you know, the heart, you know, whatever we want to call it. There's different words. So that being said, what's it like to be in the body? How do we know if we are in the body? I mean, for me, when I first started this work, I noticed after about 6 months of doing bioenergetics fairly consistently, and, you know, it may not take you that long. I was quite fucked up. So I simply noticed that doing bioenergetics pretty consistently, 6 months, that I started to feel my body. I had more feeling in my body, and to feel my body more, that meant that I had more awareness. All of a sudden, as we said at the beginning, actually, freeing this stuff up, our awareness starts to expand, and our awareness starts to expand downward into the body, and we start to feel more. So that was like my first experience, like my first direct experience of like, this stuff is really working. I'm more in my body. My mind was still out of control, and there was a lot of feelings moving through my system, but there was an intuitive sense that something here is different, something has cleared. And I don't know if you can really convey that in a message, like that something, that sort of knowing, that sort of dropping is a very personal experience. But I think, yeah, more awareness, feeling the body, and also as well, you know, going into the mind, just to go back to how to become more embodied, or how do we embody. There's so much emphasis, and we've talked about this, Chris, but it's a really good point. I think it's a really valuable point. Not, we haven't talked about it in this session, but using words, using thoughts and thinking in many ways is just a distraction to take us away. So anytime we are lost in thought, we are away from the body. And that's why talking therapies, and I'm not discrediting or discounting talking therapy. I'm actually training to be a psychotherapist, so I'm definitely not dissing it. But talking therapy can take us further out, away from what is going on. So the less said, and I'm talking quite a lot here, the less said, the better. And the more feeling we can do, the more we can drop into that feeling sense, that is going to bring on a certain level of embodiment, a certain level of feeling in the body.
Yeah, man. We say this a lot, don't we? But it can be summed up with that one sentence: feel to heal. We could just have done this whole talk and just said feel to heal. But something else was coming to me to say as you were talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were saying, the suffering is in the mind. The suffering is in the thinking in the mind. It's not in the emotions. The emotions themselves aren't the suffering. The emotions can cause suffering when the emotions cause thinking. When the emotion comes up into the mind and starts creating thinking, that can cause suffering. That is the experience of suffering. But the thinking, it gets its fuel from our attention. A negative thought comes into the mind, you give it attention, and then more negative thoughts come into the mind. The more attention you give to these thoughts, the more attention you give to them, the more fuel you're giving them. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to withdraw our attention away from the thinking. And one place we can put our attention is into the body, especially when a challenging emotion is arising. Whatever it may be in the body, the emotions are in the body. Most men, they think the emotions are in the mind. That's just because they're so cut off from the felt sense of the body. So when you notice that you've been pulled into thinking in the mind, when you notice you've been pulled into suffering in the mind and you're giving attention to that, you just bring attention down away from it, down into the body, and find, even if it's the tiniest place of sensation in the body of where there may be an emotion. And at first, I wasn't feeling my body at all. But I started to notice a tiny little place of tension, maybe in my heart, in my belly, just a little bit. And instead of having attention in the thinking, I place the attention there in the feeling. And what you notice is if you place your attention in the feeling, no matter how small that sensation may be, or it may be big, whatever, you place your attention there, then you've withdrawn attention away from the thinking mind. And you're not fueling the thinking with your attention and it settles down. And when you're just in the emotion, you're not suffering. You're just feeling. And you realize the emotion isn't that scary. It's just energy. And it's only experienced as sensation. The same as the sensation of your butt on the chair right now, or your feet on the ground right now. That's a sensation. It's not causing you suffering. Our emotions can be experienced in that way too. And so you can use every reaction, every psychological reaction to find where is the associated feeling with this. And you place your attention in that. Now, I'm just going to explain one little other thing about this, which is to show you how simple it is to move attention. This isn't complicated that we're talking about. It's very simple, the movement of attention. Right now, if I say to you, place your attention in your feet. Without any effort at all, your attention's gone to your feet. You feel some sensation there, some pressure, some heat, whatever it is. And now I say, place your attention in your tongue. Without any effort, without a thought on your part, you can feel the tongue, the saliva, the warmth. Okay? Place your attention on the sensation of yourself sitting on the chair, your buttocks on the chair. Okay, your attention goes there, you feel it. That's how easy it is to move attention. Moving attention is very easy. But when we have strong emotions, when we have these emotions that have been laid down within our bodies, that we've been spent our whole life running away from in the mind, we don't want to place our attention in them. Because part of us is afraid of them. Because when we were little kids, they were too much for us to feel. But what you can do is you can just be curious. Okay, what happens if I do place my attention in these feelings? And they start to come online for you. You start to feel them more. In the same way that you place your attention in your tongue, on your feet, or your buttocks on the chair, you place your attention in the feeling and you keep it there. And something within you won't want to do that. It will want to come up into thinking. You'll want to escape the feeling into thinking, but you just keep your attention there and see what happens. See what happens. It might grow bigger. And if it does, that's a good thing. Stay with it. It will not overwhelm you. There's a belief it will overwhelm you, but it won't overwhelm you if you stay with it. It's much safer to be in the feelings than it is to continuously live in the mind, because it's the mind that drives us crazy. It's the mind that causes all of our suffering. It's about coming back down into the body. This is one way of doing it. Bioenergetics is a more physical way of actually getting into the fascia, the tissues, where the emotions are stored deep in the body to release the stuff that's really been repressed. And if you also have this practice of feeling with your attention the feelings, then it's a perfect combination. And you also want to combine this with a practice or some way of coming away from believing the thoughts in your mind. But that's another story. That's another video. So yeah, thank you.